Oh, hey everybody. Chicken pot pie video got a lot more shake than I thought, and I actually got some requests for other things to cook throughout the week. However, I had already planned on making lasagna for Kent and I when I went to the grocery store earlier, in keeping with our comfort food kind of menu here. So what I'm doing right now is making our meat sauce for this, and this is not a bolognese. This lasagna, this sauce is Italian American, so don't come at me if it's not like your grandma's recipe. This is how I make it and how I like it. So I'm actually making a double batch of this meat sauce because I'm going to use half of it for the lasagna itself, and then I'm going to either refrigerate or freeze the other half so Ken and I can have meat sauce with shells or other pasta throughout the week, which is going to be amazing to not have to cook. Anyway, I'm already in this pot sauteing in a quarter cup of olive oil, 2 chopped onions, and keep in mind I doubled this recipe, so when I post the recipe it will be in its singular form, but that's what I'm doing tonight. So 2 chopped onions in 1/4 cup of olive oil over medium heat. You only need to saute those for about 5 minutes to get them started, and then I added 2 pounds of ground beef. I knocked up the heat to medium high, and I have been browning that, and all you have to do is cook it until it's no longer pink. So we're at that point right now. We're gonna move on with our spices. So I have oregano, and we are going to use 1 teaspoon of that. I have dried basil leaves. We are also going to use 1 teaspoon of those. And then this is your personal preference. You can omit this, you can bump it up. I'm going to do a good overflowing 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. If you do not like things spicy, knock that back as you need, or if you want a spicy lasagna, knock yourself out with however much you want. I'm also going to put in 2 bay leaves. All right, let's give that a stir. And the reason I'm adding the spices now is because I'm opting to use dried, and it really helps the flavor come alive to just saute them in the olive oil and get them hot before you add them to the liquid. I have 4 garlic cloves, chopped, minced finely. I'm gonna add those now. And I always add chopped garlic sort of last minute to things. I don't add it in with onions. I don't add it in from the start because those little pieces of garlic have a tendency to burn, and it does not taste good. I don't think burnt garlic, I don't know anybody who would like that. So that's why I added it now. All right, we're just gonna give that a few minutes for the garlic to cook up a little bit. You do wanna keep kind of tossing this around and keep it moving so the garlic does not burn in this. I still have the heat on like almost medium high or so. All right. So, next thing is tomato paste. And tomato paste, kind of like what I was talking about with the dried spices, has been sitting in this can for a long time. It's a little blah. So what I like to do is push a lot of this to the sides. And then I already had a can open from something else, so I'm kind of using 2 cans. But you want to, I'm adding for this double recipe about 6 tablespoons of this. And the reason why I'm making the spot in the middle is just so, I'm going to knock the heat up a little bit, so this can start cooking, can start softening, because if you added it in cold to the liquid component of the sauce, it A, is hard to mix in, and B, I think this just wakes up the flavor of it a little bit more. And what is the point of doing anything unless we have maximum flavor possible? So we're gonna let that toast a little bit. I'm gonna keep stirring this. I'm gonna get rid of these cans real quick. Next thing. Now, I like to add a little bit of red wine to my meat sauce specifically. Not to marinara, but anything that has meat. I think it gives it a little bit of a depth of flavor, a little acidic note that's different from the tomato flavor. But this is completely optional, especially if you're making the lasagna and this is the sauce for it. If you omit this wine, it's really not going to change the end product, I don't think. But I am using 1 cup of, I think this is Chianti. We had a couple bottles. This was the cheapest. So I just opened it to cook with. You can use anything that you'd like. I would use a dry wine. I would not use anything that is sweet because you do want to control the sweetness level yourself of your sauce. Okay, so as you can see in here, our tomato paste is kind of darkened a little bit. I'm going to now stir it through into the beef to get everybody acquainted here in this pot. And see, it's kind of like dried up a little bit. It's starting to stick to the bottom of the pan. That is kind of what you want at this stage. And I think that means you are good to go to add in our wine. We're going to add this all at once. We will stir it through and make sure you get in there and scrape the bottom of the pan as you do so, just to get any of that flavor up. Because this is only a cup in here and the pan's really, really hot, this shouldn't take too long to start boiling. And what you want it to do is to reduce down a little bit, almost by half. See how that's already going to town in there. Okay. I'm going to give that a few minutes just to bubble and start to reduce. Get rid of that. Next, again, because I'm doubling this, I'm using 2 28-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes. And these are the basil kind because thank you to all the people who ravaged the supermarkets up here. Fresh basil just was not anything that was in our grocery store. I usually do add that to my sauce, but I thought next best thing was to get this with basil already in it. So let us check. Yeah, our pan, I mean, it does not take long. It's like already dried up again, as you can see, which is exactly what you want when the wine reduces. So I think we are good to add in our crushed tomatoes. Now, keep these cans for now because I also like to add in a little bit of either chicken or beef stock. It doesn't really matter since we are using beef already. I had beef stock left over from something else that I already made earlier, so I'm going to use that. Chicken stock will work fine. If you don't have either, water is perfectly fine too. It will all boil away. Now, we have a lot of tomato left in there. We paid for this. Let's use it. I like to kind of tip my stock around the sides a little bit, shake it up a little bit to loosen all of that goodness. Yes. Do the same thing with this can. It's about a cup I'm using for this, which was all I had left in this container, which worked out absolutely perfectly. All right. Let us give this a nice mix. Make sure everything is coming together here. All right, last thing. I'm gonna put in 2 teaspoons, double recipe, of kosher salt. Big pot of sauce, needs to be well seasoned. And then I am going to add, and you don't have to do this, however, I like a little bit of sweetness to counteract all the like wine acid and the tomato acid. In this, I'm using a nice tablespoon of granulated regular sugar. You don't have to, obviously, if you're like, sugar, what? Trust me, it doesn't make it sweet. It just balances the flavors out a little bit. So if you're wary of that, don't put it in. Taste your sauce. You might feel like it needs it, or you can put it in gradually. As you can do with the seasoning is totally up to you as far as how much salt you want to put in or sugar. All right, good to go. We're not putting anything else in here for now. I'm gonna wait until this entire mixture comes up to a nice boil. I will roll back the heat to keep it going at like a nice simmer. And we are gonna simmer this until slightly thickened, maybe like 20-ish minutes or so. After that period is over, taste your sauce. Because what you don't want, especially if you're tossing it with pasta or even in the lasagna, is a flat, unseasoned sauce. Each time I make it, it's different. Sometimes it's right on, 2 teaspoons of salt. Yeah, it worked. Sometimes I need to add as much as an entire other teaspoon to it. I might need to add more sugar just because of the wine I was using or whatever. So taste that once it's up to your par. Set it aside, let it cool completely if you are not using it immediately. I'm gonna take half of this and cool it and put it in the fridge, and then I am going to use the rest of the warm sauce to move forward with the lasagna because I think it's a lot quicker in the oven with the lasagna once it is warm. So that's our meat sauce. I will come back to you in a little bit to put this all together for the lasagna. Thanks, everybody.